All right. Welcome to another edition of the Between Two Wheels podcast. This is Tyler Janke coming to you once again with Chris Flower. Chris, how you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. Pretty good. How about yourself?
Good. I'm disappointed that our buddy Curt's not with us. He seems to flake out a little more often than not now.
He's got obligations. It sounds like he's starting up like a hostel or something in his house. So he's got to sweep the hallways, I think.
That is true. And then last week we found out he wasn't replying to us because we're very needy, and he had a broken screen on his phone. So at least that was one of his excuses. He does have a lot of excuses.
He does. He kind of gets out of cell range at times too. So I think he's just doing his own thing.
Right. Well, either way, you and I are here. We've had a little lapse in some of the trying to be up on a weekly. This is a semi-weekly podcast, mostly weekly. We're trying to get there. Look, we have lives. I know you've been busy. We had bad air quality.
We did,
which just kind of skipped out on us now. So it's much better. How are you feeling about that?
I feel better. I was really bummed because that really hit us hard. But last week it was, if not really high temperature
as well,
and poor air quality. So it really impacted my ability to get out and ride. Unfortunately.
Yeah. Did you have effects from it? I know a few weeks ago we rode with Curt, and he was like laid out. I mean, he was not doing well immediately thereafter. I didn't feel like I had those kind of effects, like stomach. There was a few times it was kind of weird, but breathing wasn't horrible. I don't know. What about you?
I didn't really feel like that hit me too bad. I think it was just kind of adding to the existing difficulty of riding in the heat. I don't do that great when it gets that hot. So adding in the poor air quality, I think probably just adds to that negative experience.
Well, I'll say one thing. So Coach Nate Dunn sent me a clip. We'll add it in later on the show. It's riding in poor air quality. So timely, and stay tuned for that and get a little addition. Okay, so what's coming up? We're going to, there's so many races out there, Chris. You and I talked about it. Even if we were having some real high intense research for a show, it would be a little too much for this one. I mean, we have so many world tour events, domestic stuff going on, local stuff going on. So we're going to talk about Tour Utah, recap, talk about who's the best upcoming USA rider, kind of came out of that. Some tragedy in the world tour, transfers in world cycling. We got some teams maybe closing shop, Colorado Classic, men's and women's. They had a men's and women's edition, some NorCal stuff, Dunnigan road race, Sassoon,
a lot.
Yeah. The Vuelta's coming up, so we'll get into all of that.
The Vuelta, oh man,
I know. Just when you thought the end was here,
I thought we could take a break here.
Well, you can always take a break, because then what happens is you just have me solo. This is why I want someone in here to get some better perspective on things. So, and one of these times we're gonna have to talk a little bit about your involvement in the sport and really talk about who is Chris Flower and with cycling. Do you want to talk about that right now? Or you want to bike racing?
It's a short story. Sometimes I ride my bike. Rarely do I race.
We should recap people. If we have new listeners, which hopefully we do. I'm Tyler. I've been racing since I was like 15, 16 years old. Took about a 10-year hiatus. Back on the bike. Been loving it since about 2012. I really enjoy masters racing. That's pretty much what I do. And we do group rides. Chris?
Different story. I got into bike racing in about 2013, and that saw me get into masters racing pretty quickly because I started at an older age, and I enjoy the occasional race, but I really do enjoy just getting out and doing a race ride because it's convenient, close to home, and it's a better use of time in terms of efficiency. So
yeah, and then Curt, his involvement was he was looking for a way to cut some weight. I think he'd been kind of an athlete and then kind of a eater. I don't know, an athletic eater.
I think so. Yeah, competitive.
Yeah, and then he got into cycling, and he's a great guy, and he has a lot of good insight. So our involvement is we have a lot of stuff going on in the local scene. We're involved in that, but we also love the world tour and the pro cycling, and so kind of mishmash of knowledge, and there we have it. All right, Tour Utah. Did you have a chance? I know I watched it all. I thought it was pretty exciting. I think you have kind of three big races in the U.S. now. Obviously, Tour California, Utah, and then Colorado Classic. And, the big money, the high ranking one is Amgen,
right? And
then Utah and Colorado. And I think in that order of prestige.
So. Yeah, because Colorado had to change their model a little bit. They were something before the Colorado Cycling Classic. It was I don't remember.
Yeah,
it had a different name.
Grand Funk Railroad,
something like that. But they changed their model, I think, to fewer stages, and then they did it with kind of a central hub and kind of starting all races in that location to try and minimize cost. And Yeah, I definitely agree that the tier of significance would be Amgen, then Utah, then Colorado. I think Utah and Colorado used to be flip-flopped, but that's changed over the past 2 years.
Right. And honestly, the one I probably enjoy watching the most, other than, California, is Utah. And I think it's the intent. It's more like those early season Basque country 1 week stage races that are pretty cool.
Yeah.
And you get the funny hat when you win and the Trident and stuff.
What do you win at Utah? Do you get anything cool?
Well, I don't mean for that reason.
I know, but just in general, I didn't see any of the podium.
I don't know.
We'll have to find out.
There, I did see something. They had a little trophy of something. I don't know. We'll have to look that up. So if someone knows, they can send it in. But I mean, as far as the intense climbing, I mean,
right.
What do you have? Sepp Kuss wins 3 stages, was it?
Yeah.
And he's nothing but a climber.
Right.
And that's what I've been, some nasty, steep, long climbs there. So it's pretty cool for that reason to have
high elevation, shorter stages. So it's just boom, intensity.
Right.
Let's go.
Right. So we'll talk about that. Which what we had there was Sepp Kuss ends up with, well, the first one was a prologue time trial.
Right.
TJ,
shorty. It was
6K.
Thereabouts.
Because it was like 13, 14 minutes, I think was the winner.
Right. It was kind of, not really climb out, but I'd say it was like, 3% going out and turn around and come back in?
Yeah, something like that. And you had them using Merck style bikes.
Right, which is cool.
And they did the same thing in Colorado, which I think is cool for bringing those teams over. If you want to do that, just don't disadvantage some of them and allow them to come over and, actually be competitive. And we'll talk about Colorado, but the time trial there, you saw the winner's time was, I want to say, about 6 minutes from what TJ had put up a few years ago.
Same course?
Same course. It's the standard Vail time trial. They've been using it way back since Greg LeMond was using it. And the fast time of TJ owns it. But I think that's the difference you see with a time trial bike.
Yeah.
Because there are some flat sections kind of rolling to begin with before they get into the power. And it's a power climb.
Yeah.
So anyway.
And TJ, I think, owned the prologue at Utah. So maybe that's something he should try and hone in on, is that either that prologue or time trials, and maybe let this stage racing thing fade away.
Let's talk. So TJ gets that. McCabe gets a sprint win. You're thinking, okay, this is going to happen. And then I'm trying to remember the younger kid, the action kid, won the next sprint stage just barely over.
He almost won the one against McCabe. They had a little bike throw, and McCabe took him there. But I think it was Jasper. I forget his last name. He just signed with one of the big teams. We'll have to look that up, but. Yeah, that was a really good uphill sprint finish too. I think they were like leaning into each other, and I think the UHC leadout guy ended up just stopping 10 yards from the finish line, and a couple guys crashed into the back of him.
Yeah, and then you had Sepp Kuss going on the move.
Jasper Philipsen.
Yep, you did good job. Who did he sign with? Do you know?
I forget.
Well, that doesn't help us.
I can find out for you.
And then you have Sepp Kuss and his Lotto team, basically, and then he takes 3 wins in the climbs. The first one being a little more of a daring ascent out when he wasn't the expected guy. Because I think at that point you're thinking, oh, TJ, Book Walter and some of these guys, he just comes off of the tour. This is kind of what you expect for a race for him to be able to go out and really dominate. But the domination was Sepp Kuss. Takes a long range win, and then he takes the next 2. And both of the 2 that he won, stage 6 and 7, I think, or anyway, the Saturday, Sunday, were from the bottom of the climb.
Right. Yeah, he just said, I'm going, try and keep up.
Right.
And really nobody could. I think the guy who was closest to even offering him a challenge was Ben Hermans, and even that was just kind of holding on at best.
Right. And Ben Hermans of the Israel Cycling Academy, formerly of BMC, he did a good job, and he's had some good results. He's he's a good stud in his own right, so it's nothing to shake a stick at. But what was interesting you saw with the Lotto team was really young. I think there was one rider on the team that was like 34, 35, and then everyone else was 20, 22, right in that range. Yeah. So they had a young team, and they really came out. And you saw Neilson Powless doing some work for Sepp. Dane Oliver, the other rider on the team that was in a break early on, he did a lot of work on the front as well. And it was cool to see this young team that's expected, because they're world tour capable, come out and actually do something. So contrast that with another World Tour team that you expect to do something, two of them, which is BMC and EF Education First.
Yeah, BMC just was kind of absent. I don't know what they were expecting to do. Obviously, with TJ getting into the yellow on stage 1, my guess is they plan to defend it throughout the rest of the race. But the first difficult stage, TJ just kind of fell off the map. I mean, he was struggling to hang with the attackers, the climbers, and then he just kind of fell in with the peloton for the rest of the race, which is definitely a bummer. And I think Education First, they tried, and it looked like they were pretty well organized for quite a bit of the stages. They had their, Sky-esque lead-out train going up the climbs, but then it was just Sepp Kuss decided, okay, I'm just going to go and ride away from everybody. And what do you do in that situation? I mean, you've got your best guys out there, well, with the exception of like Iran, but you've got Mike Woods out there and teammates, and Kuss is just riding away from them.
Yeah, it was weird to see in a sense, because he really put the hammer down on him, and it didn't look like he was having to do a lot of like, I don't know. I'm sure he was doing a lot of work, because I know he was, but I mean, it didn't look like he was over the top. Like,
no, he just looked like he was really comfortable.
Right. Yeah, very comfortable and having a good time. So I enjoyed that. We'll bring this into, because we heard the news also at the same time of Adrien Costa.
Yeah.
So you want to talk about kind of what we heard about that, and then kind of some of the discussions that we had from our last podcast till now about American riders.
Yeah. It sounds like, we know Costa stepped away from cycling after, was it Gila last year?
Well, I thought it was, no, because he didn't race last year.
Okay, must have been the year before.
Yeah.
So he's taking a break, kind of rediscovering himself and figuring out what he wants to do. But obviously, given his past racing experience, he's a heck of a talent. So it sounds like he was doing kind of a hike or technical scramble in and around Yosemite a couple weeks back. Was climbing up toward a rock wall to do some climbing. Boulder fell down and pinched his leg up against another rock, and he was basically stuck there until some other climbers came by and found him. They were able to, collectively work with Forest Service and get him airlifted to a hospital in Reno. And I mean, ultimately he had to have his leg amputated above the knee. And obviously that ends his professional cycling career. It's going to be difficult to come back from that. I suppose he could go alternate routes or something like that. But yeah, it definitely is a blow to him on many levels, unfortunately.
Yeah, on many levels. So, I mean, and we were talking kind of about American talent. Neilson, obviously Sepp kind of comes to the fore as massive breakthrough. I mean, 2 years of basically racing. He was with the Harley Davidson team, or
the Baddeley Harley team.
Yeah, exactly. And then boom up to a rally, and he did really well at Colorado last year. Kind of was good, and then gets a chance with Lotto, and look what he's done. He hadn't done anything up until this point individually.
Did he do California?
He did California, okay. Yeah. And it was, mid-pack as far as, but, he was doing work there for, he had Neilson, and I'm trying to remember the other tiny little guy that's on their team as well, that did the tour. But so he was doing work, and he was doing work early on for his team and, the early season stuff. So he didn't really get a chance and a breakthrough. And
I think, what we've talked about is just who's going to step in and kind of fill the void of the kind of the TJ generation. Right. And I think it was, Costa was kind of marked as the guy to be the next Le Mans, so to speak. And obviously that's not going to happen now. So it's cool to see somebody like Kuss kind of just jump right in and have such a great performance. And I think his performance at Utah got him tagged to go race the Vuelta.
Correct.
And it'll be interesting to see. Obviously, he's not going to be a leader in that race, but it'll be cool to see how he can kind of hang with those bigger riders and bigger teams for 3 weeks instead of 1.
Right. And back to Adrien, kind of the interesting part there was, when he decided that he was going to take some time off, and then he was still on the roster for last year, I think, or this year. Maybe it was last year. We'll have to get the.
I think it was last year.
So when he was still announced to be on the roster, but then he wasn't actually racing.
Yeah.
But it was a worldwide news story. It wasn't just us here in the States that had interest, because this kid was so phenomenal, and he had so much talent and potential that, he was a stagiaire for Quick Step,
right,
which didn't have a good time. I think he wrecked the first time out and some other problems. But the point is, he was such a big potential talent that this was a news story across the world of cycling. him not racing. And then obviously the tragedy that bestowed him with the leg issue, which is, he had a GoFundMe page. And I don't know if you heard about the amount. Did he get more than the velodrome? That's the threshold.
What was the velodrome? Velodrome was like 250.
I don't remember. I just saw something today where Craddock had done, they had enough to build it, I guess. So.
Okay. Yeah. I think when I last looked at Adrien's page, it was somewhere around 110,000. So I think their goal was 100, so they exceeded that, which is good.
Yeah, goal, but that's still going to be a long haul ahead. It reminded me, and you have a connection too. Phil Zajicek, guy I had raced with out in Colorado, and then a friend of yours who had been teammates with him at USA Cycling. A few years ago, he was coming down to climb a Flagstaff and got hit by a car, and they had to amputate the arm.
Right.
And I haven't heard any follow up on that. I mean, that's obviously another tragic thing to lose a limb. It's pretty, and I kind of thinking with this one, maybe Cycling Tips, one of these teams could, or news outlets can go and do a little follow up and see how he's doing.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to hear how he's adapted to life.
All right, so Utah was interesting. Any other breakouts that you saw there that notes? Woods was a little disappointing to me.
I was surprised that everybody was as disappointing as they were, with the exception of Kuss. It was cool to see Jack Haig do well from Mitchelton Scott.
Right.
I know he's gearing up for the Vuelta. So it looked like he kind of did what he could to hang with Kuss as long as he was able to, and then saved it all for the last stage. And read some comments from him after the last stage where he said the descent into, where were they descending into? Was it
Park City?
Park City. He said it was probably one of the most terrifying descents he's ever done. He said it was not fun at all.
Well, they went over the top and it started to rain.
Right.
And then all these, Kuss has a lead, and Haig's trying to catch him.
Yeah.
And
I think it was with Bookwalter at that time. Haig and Bookwalter were working together.
Yeah, and I think it was Bookwalter that posted up a speed that was like his record. It was insane. I'm trying to remember what it was that he showed his training peaks or something that was his speed of like 100 and something kilometers an hour. It was, yeah.
In the rain. Nice.
In the rain. And, you're risking your overall pretty heavily to descend like that.
Right.
So
crazy stuff. But no, it was good to see Jack Haig do well. It's good to see somebody else from the U.S. do well, because Neilson didn't have a great performance overall. It's been kind of a tough year, it seems, for him. But yeah, other than that, it was not a good showing for Education First and Woods. Even Hugh Carthy would look kind of didn't look that great. TJ looking to switch teams didn't exactly end on a stellar performance.
He's coming right into form for what EF Education First looks like they require. I saw Pierre Roland today is no longer with Vittel. He signed with Vittel.
Oh,
so he kind of. Yeah, I think so. So he came in. Vaughters was going to say he was the next great thing and he kind of got blown out. So who knows?
TJ is such a tough case. He's still young. I didn't realize he was still in his 20s. So, I mean, he still has some time to kind of...
he has time to be... This is going to be a horrible comment. He has time to be washed up twice.
That's true. There you go.
So
he's got to come back first, though, to be washed up again. So
that's true. And I pull for him. So, discussion about the next great American cyclist is always tough, because I think there's a lot of pressure when you tag anyone as that.
Yeah.
But... obviously, Sepp Kuss comes in and has this amazing result, and you're like, wow, it could be. I don't think you write off Neilson Powless did either. What, 20, 21?
Yeah, he just had a bad couple of stage races.
It's his first World Tour year. Yeah. I mean, he didn't, some of those guys go up there and it kills them, right? I mean, they're not even able to do anything that he's even been able to do. So you give him a chance. Not everyone, as I know Curt would disagree, but... Bernal, you can't compare him to like Bernal, because I think that guy is phenomenal, and who knows what he's going to be able, look what he did in the Tour this year with the help. You can't expect everyone that's similar to be doing what he's doing.
That's true. I think one of the other challenges is when you look at somebody like Kuss. I mean, he can climb incredibly well, but can he do a time trial? I mean, that's going to be really important.
Not.
Right. It's going to be critical for the Grand Tours. And we know Neilson has a really good TT, so obviously he's still where the hope lies.
I would even take a guy that's just for American, that's just fun to watch in the mountains. Maybe you can't. Maybe Andy Hampson days. Any kind of climbing stage, you're in it, and then lament the fact that he can't time trial. But at least it's fun to watch him. Alpe d'Huez and some of these other ones where he's in it. So I don't know.
I think Lotto's got a good team for that.
Right.
If you just want entertainment. And they obviously have got a couple guys who can still put up good position too.
Yeah, and unless Kuss and Neilson, break out and are amazing, and you have all this infighting on that team, I don't think that's going to happen. Nah. So you're going to have a chance for these guys to kind of be superstars, I think, coming up in the near future. Who knows? We'll see how he does in the Vuelta. Anybody else? I mean, EF Education first. We can kind of go right into Colorado with them. They had a little better showing. Hugh Carthy seemed to be kind of showing his form a little bit better.
Right.
And actually, did you see the whole race? I mean, the only ones that were exciting there was 4 days around Vail on the first day, which is pretty cool for the Continental team of Velo.
Yeah, that was a really cool stage. That was the first one.
Let's go through those. So break them off. Go ahead. You want me to do it?
Yeah, why don't you?
Well, the first day was a circuit race around Vail, and they will go through the Vail Village, and then they have even a mile or 1.5K of dirt.
Yeah.
Little kicker. And there's a breakaway. There's a track guy. There's Ovelo. Gage Heck is up there. I think a UHC. And I'm trying to remember everyone that was up there. But there was 4 of them coming down the last lap. He being Gage attacks, gets a gap off, and then the other guys get swallowed up. And he just hangs out 20 seconds, and he's just hanging on. And he ends up holding on for the wheel. And then coming in through the field, you have McCabe posts up for the
Did
second
he know
place.
that Heck was up the road?
Well, you expect when he's posting up like that he doesn't know that he's up the road. But then I saw an interview with him like immediately after, and he's talking about, I engage, and just as if he never posted up. It was we can see it happen.
Yeah. The course I thought was pretty cool. I thought they used what they had really well. It was a fun technical finish. I think that really helped Gage stay away because he was able to kind of stay out of sight for greater lengths of time there. But it was a cool course. It didn't look like they had to go too far out of town to put it together. So I thought it was really well done.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it was good to see Conti team get the win and him hold on, Gage. So it's kind of cool. Collects all the jerseys first day. Big deal for Mike Creed's team.
Young team, obviously. I mean, they're all
Jason
really young
Saltzman, local NCNCA rider, is on their team. He was not participating in that race, but then they have the Vail time trial.
And we were talking about that earlier today. That's predominantly uphill climbing one.
Correct.
And
Starts
they
in the Vail
did it
Village.
On road bikes.
And they did it on road bikes.
Okay.
And then the next day was
How'd that shake out? Sorry.
So
I didn't see the results.
Gavin Mannion won that, and Gage Heck came off. He didn't be able to help himself out much in that. But you saw some. It's one of those, especially at altitude up there, 8,000 feet maybe at Vail, that it can really douse your power and kill you if you're not on the pedals just right, if you're not having that kind of day. So
I found that one really difficult to watch because the coverage was really choppy, and they weren't really covering riders, so I ended up tuning out just because it's kind of a hassle.
I found the live feed was a struggle beyond proportion. It's the good old days of rabbit ears when you're, at least for me, trying to watch some TV that didn't come in.
Right.
When Fox was still first broadcasting on the air.
But it was coverage, which is cool.
Right. But actually what I did get was the replay. The replay, I would wait till it get posted up, and I watched the replay, and it was very smooth. So I didn't have any problems with that. And they actually posted, they had I use Roku extensively, and they had a Roku app, and it was very easy and slick, and so not a problem. Then the next day, Denver, go up Lookout Mountain, which we did as in college as a time trial up that. I don't know what that has to do with anything other than I've done that multiple times myself, just outside of
multi-circuit.
So they go up there, then they go out through Evergreen, do a few climbs, come back into town.
Okay.
So it was a big, out and back type of thing.
Yeah.
And up the first climb, you had 3 EF Education. You had Martinez, Dombrowski, and Carthy off the front with Squeens and a few other guys, and they were only 20 some seconds back overall, so they had a chance to take the lead. And they were drilling it all day. So this is within the first, 20, 30 miles, they had on a break, and they get caught literally, I think it was 5-6K to go. So
really?
It was kind of disappointing in that fact, but it was still interesting. And then the last day was this little circuit downtown. But if you watch the race last year, I thought one of the best races I've seen all in the last several years, especially on a domestic circuit, was the one in Breckenridge. that they had last year. With Sepp Kuss just held on for like third or so. I think he rolled his tires or something like that right in the last thing. But it was one of those phenomenal steep little climbs. It had enough that just shattered the field. And it was really fun to watch over and over and over up the same little circuit.
Yeah.
They didn't use that this year. I thought Colorado was a little more boring than it's been in the past. But, you got to race on the calendar 4 days. It's what it is.
Yeah, and they timed it well with Utah where they could get a lot of the same riders to good races within a couple weeks of each other.
Right. So you got Gavin Mannion wins that. His teammate Tetchkov in second. Hugh Carthy third. Hausen for Mitchelton Scott fourth. So then you have EF Education first, then fifth, sixth. So they did really well. 3 guys and the 3 guys I just mentioned all in the top 10. Yeah. Same with UHC, some rally in there. So good stuff for some of the local teams, but the domestic U.S. teams. Women also participated. Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, they also did 4 stages. I think they did different stages. I believe they did the same TT, but it was cool to see a lot of local women in the race. So NCNC,
local being our
local to Northern California. So I think we had 4 or 5 NCNCA regulars out there, and then I believe a couple of the UHC women kind of originated in the NCNCA, but they've been on the pro circuit for a while. But yeah, let me pull up the race here because I don't have it.
So they did, and while you're getting that, I'll just talk real quick about the stages. So they did the same circuit on stage 1, a little shorter. They did the same time trial. Then they did little oval, and the last 2 were abbreviated in town in Denver.
They're kind of crit circuit, right?
Yeah. And Katie Hall ends up winning the women's, and then we'll let you talk about.
Yeah, so she ended up getting just a huge lead on the TT.
Right.
Katie Hall did. I think she put a handful of minutes into the rest of the group there. And I think that obviously was enough to settle it in for her. Let me see. They don't have any of these handy. Yeah, it looks like she put 26 seconds into Leah Thompson and another 48 into Jillian Elsay. And that, I think, ended up being the overall.
Well, Lee Thomas was second, and then Abigail Mickey of Raleigh third, Krista Doble Hickok Silence from fourth, and then Jillian Elsey in fifth. So I think those it wasn't a race for the overall in the last few days. It was just some minor placings. And I think Lee Thompson announced her retirement after the race.
Oh, did she?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, on the local front, Ellie Velez was out there racing. Does she actually have a team locally? I know she's kind of informally associated with Folsom Bike, but I don't know if she races for them or not.
Yeah, I don't know.
She was out there racing with the Amy D Foundation, finished 27th overall in the GC, which is cool. Also out there was Hannah Mugi. She was racing with Point S, and Melanie Wong was racing with Point S as well, and there was one other, Lisa Cordova. She was racing with the AMED Foundation. They all came in with really good results. It was just cool to see that they're getting some racing on that stage.
I think something must have happened with Melanie on the last day because she DNF'd the last stage, and which is, not a stage that she would have trouble with, downtown circuit type of thing, especially when Ellie was like top 20 or so on that day.
Right.
So you also had just some other ones. Ali Dragoo, 2020. She was out there. She was 13th overall. Shayna Powless, local, Neilson's sister, 2020. She was 24th. So a good showing by those girls. And I know we talked to Ellie's coach on Saturday. So the women actually had full TT bikes for their time trial.
Oh, did they?
And yeah, so they were allowed to do that. And I think that makes a bigger difference, especially when you have someone like Katie Hall who can climb and she can time trial pretty good.
Yeah.
And you have a setup specifically for that. It's going to hinder those like Melanie, Eleanor, Velez, Ellie, that aren't necessarily probably on their time trial bike as much. Maybe not have a specific time trial bike.
Probably didn't even bring a time trial bike.
Yeah, exactly. So, I don't think Ellie even has one. So, she got 4 minutes put into her by Katie Hall, which at that elevation, everything, it's a learning experience and it's awesome. When I was in college and then first doing racing like that, we were able to do some of those races, against the big pros came over. I think I've told this before. It was 95 or 96 where the world championships were going to be in Bogota, Colombia. So no one wanted to train there because there was a big drug war going on.
Sure.
So they came and they put on a big race in Colorado Springs, and we did the Air Force Academy. We did all these, cool races out there, like 3-4 days. And Miguel Indurain's lined up, Broy King, all these big time stars from the World Tour. And it was pretty fun to just get smashed in the head by some of these big riders that, you didn't get a chance to race with before.
Right. It's got to be a fun experience just to be in the mix with those guys.
Right.
They're going to stomp your face in, but you still got to race against them when they were kind of in the process of peaking for their target races.
Right. Just to be a dick, I want to mention here, watching the coverage. So actually, one of my former teammates, Jim Miller, who used to be at USA Cycling, he's with Training Peaks, and he was doing like a pre-race video. It was horribly done. I don't know if it's necessarily his fault, but it was. It made the coverage seem really amateurish, and.
For Colorado?
For Colorado. I don't know if you saw those.
I didn't see those, but it fits well with the overall
It felt
production.
Awkward watching it. Knowing Jim, I was just like...
Did he cover the stages? Like, here's where we've got to climb, so look for this person.
Yeah, and he was giving some breakdowns of what power would be needed, and then they'd cut to Norm Alvis, former pro, that was on the bike doing some kind of things. And at one time they're talking about the sprint coming into town yesterday, actually, and then it's like almost a 10-second slow-mo of Norm Alvis sprinting and kind of throwing his bike in just on a random road. It was just a 2-lane road. It wasn't the sprint finish, but
that's too bad.
Yeah, it was about as good a quality as I would do. Which, as those watching, hey, we're on YouTube today, by the way. Okay, so done with Colorado. It was good to see the women going out there. Any other takeaways you have from that?
From Colorado overall, that's something that I think we can kind of segue into. Is just it was impressive to see teams like UHC in Colorado and Utah just giving everything they got, knowing that their contracts are probably gone.
Right.
Between them,
Jelly Belly,
Silver, all those teams that are going to be folding up. So it's good to see those guys trying to get some attention on them as they look for new teams.
And that's Tom Swerble was another one that did well in not only Colorado, but he did well in Utah as well.
Right.
So it's so interesting to see these guys because you've got to be able to you're let's say you're on UHC and you've got McCabe as a sprint and you're a guy that leads him out. You're not going to be showcased. This is McCabe that's going to get the win and get a contract, but you've got a job still to do, and it's got to be tough because maybe you want to showcase yourself a little bit.
Right.
I don't know what you do.
Yeah, it's tough. Do you just kind of continue to play the team role and put that on your resume that, hey, I'm a team player, or do you try and get your name out there a little more?
I know directors talk to each other and the writers, and so I would imagine that if you're a kind of the jerk that just throwing it away to get yourself something and it's a little obvious of that, they may know. The next team may know that, and you may get passed over for that.
Yeah,
I don't know. Who knows? But then you win a race. So a little tough to avoid.
Right.
Any of those we had San Sebastian. I mean, we didn't even talk about that. It was a classic. Alaphilippe comes out of the Tour de France, wins that. With Mollema in second. Bink Bank, Vuelta Burgos, Tour of Poland. Michael Kwiatkowski wins Poland. So I just saw the results here, and I tried to watch on I think Dylan Toons won the Poland race last year. Great race. It's a really climby, punchy. It's not long, gradual climbs, but just these over and over, 2-3K type of things. And it was a fun race to watch last year. And obviously Kwiatkowski winning a few stages and getting the overall. We know he can ride from the Tour de France. And what's great about him, I think maybe you kind of intimated this with TJ, is he knows his role. Right. Kwiatkowski, he's really good at these 1 week stage race type of things, and he just goes in the Tour. You don't ever hear about, he might be a guy that wants a general classification chance because he rides and then he just literally stops on the side of the road and then he wins these short race stages.
Yeah, I think it's great that, not to say he knows his role, but I mean he knows where he excels and he focuses his attention there and makes himself available to the team for the stage races where he's not going to be a contender for GC. So I think he does a good job of maximizing his abilities. Right. And he can obviously do well in one-day races, having won Milan-San Remo a couple of years ago. So he's got a good sprint in a reduced field. So I think he's a good rider in that regard.
So we talked a little bit ago about kind of the next upcoming rider. So we already talked about Adrien Costa, but there was another one that American rider that you've ridden with. You were just telling me earlier today, Arctic stage race out in Norway. Right. So we have another one that's been on the up and coming. Tell us about what you know there.
Yeah, so that was that 4-day stage race up in Norway, and the kind of standout from the American side would be rally racer Colin Joyce. He won stage 2, I believe, and that was a kind of a reduced sprint. It looked like maybe a group of 7 coming to the line. He got a little box in with 500 to go, found an opening, and was able to kind of power through to the win, which was really cool to see. As you mentioned, he used to race for Cal Giant, which was kind of a NorCal-based team, and he'd come out to the Wednesday ride every now and again, I don't know, 4 years ago. So it's cool to see somebody that you've been in a group ride with do well on the pro scene there. But the other thing that was cool to see in that stage race overall was Matthew Vanderpoel taking 2 stages, and I think 2 stage wins, 3rd place in another, and stage 2 he just absolutely blew up. I think he was several minutes back, so he didn't contend the GC, but cool to see a cyclocross standout start his transition over to road, kind of like Wout van Aert's been doing.
Well, I was just going to say, I get those two mixed up.
Yeah.
So Van Aert, was he the one that was in Strade Bianca?
Yes.
and the Paris-Roubaix? Okay. And then Vanderpoel was, those two were going at it all season, I know, on cross.
Yeah.
So which one is the world champion current?
Current world champ is Van Aert.
All right. So he's obviously got a career. How old is Vanderpoel?
I think they're both in their early 20s. So really young guys. And I think...
Who's he ride for?
Oh, gosh.
Joker?
Circus, something, some oddball team like that. Circus, gambling, poker. I don't know. But I think he's still focused on not making a complete transition to road, and I think has aspirations to do well on the mountain bike scene. So I think he's trying to kind of...
I'm sorry, the what?
Right, exactly. You need a separate show for that. But I think he wants to win either the Olympics or Worlds on the mountain bike. So I think he's just kind of feeling his way through everything. And I think Van Aert's going to be quicker to make the transition over to complete road. So, but both of them, it sounds like, are gearing up for cyclocross season. So it's impressive that they can stay that peaked all year long.
I was trying to get some insight on cyclocross this last year, and what I came away with understanding, especially in the Europe, these two guys especially, is they make a good living, those two. Doing the cycllocross stuff. So
yeah,
it's a little bit probably more like motocross. You know, you're specialized. You're kind of one off. You don't have to have so much team infighting stuff. And so these two are well known. They make the circuit. They win a lot, and they get banked from being Dutch or Belgium. And
I think there's one of each on the team there. Yeah.
So there you go. So why would you necessarily make the move to road right now when you get to do 1 hour races a lot?
I don't know. I'm assuming with cycling being as so ingrained in their culture as it is, there's always that pull to do the big road stuff.
Right.
Obviously, cyclocross and Belgium go hand in hand, but then you add in things like the classics and Paris-Roubaix and all that. I think that's got some appeal. And if you've got the ability to transition over, and a team's going to pay you probably a healthy amount of money, it's worth it to try it out. And obviously, Van Aert's done incredibly well when he's transitioned over, and Vanderpoel's done the same. So
well, but you made it sound like he was going to go do mountain biking. Does he know this is 2018, not 1999? And
I don't know. If he's got the skill set to do all three, why not?
Yeah, I mean, he's got. Yeah, who knows? Good for him. I'm just not.
He sprints like a cyclocross guy or a junior. His bike is all over the place when he's sprinting. It's crazy to watch. Not a guy you want to be next to in a field sprint.
I'm going to film you sometime.
Easy.
A few weeks ago, I'm like, hey, Chris is sprinting like a junior. As I look over and a junior's sprinting next to me like an adult. And I was like, okay, well, sorry, kid.
Where was this?
I don't know.
Impossible.
I don't remember you sprinting. Okay. So let's talk about some transfers in the world. There's a lot going on. I don't know if you've really... I was looking today at some of the transfer market, and some of these teams are just unloading and then loading up too. So,
sure. It's been obviously... BMC has just kind of sold the ship for the most part, with the exception of a few guys that have held on. So they lost. I mean, who did they really end up keeping?
Well, I was looking today, and there are actually quite a few guys that are coming on board. Well, they're picking up a bunch.
They are.
Well, as a matter of fact, I have a few that I did list here. They signed Simon Geschke. Of course, he puts on. This is the thing that cracked me up. He put on Twitter that he signed with BMC, and I'm like, does he know that they're now a Polish handbag
I'm guessing he had to tag the current team.
Could be
my guess.
Could
but
be.
Who knows?
But either that or someone needs to tell this guy.
He's going to be disappointed next year.
He's like, wait, what? You're paying me in leather handbags? Will Barta of Action, but he's gone over to them. Serge Powless from Dimension Data. Guillaume Van Kiersbulk, Wanty Group Gobert. Those guys all got signed up by CCC. But then I didn't mention some of the ones that were staying. Obviously, Greg Van Avermaet, and there was a few other ones.
I mean, it seems like they're really building up a good classics team.
Yeah.
I mean, these are all big classics guys.
Yeah, I didn't see anybody that, climby specialist guys. So
because obviously it's the same team, BMC, CCC, CC, whatever it is. They lost Richie Port. He went to Trek.
Yeah.
What's his name? Also from Australia. Decided Simon Gerrans retired.
Okay, about time.
He rode his bike a little bit.
No, I mean, I'm just saying. It seems like, and why I say that is because he had just stuff I was hearing on some Australian podcasts. He's like, I never want to do the tour again.
Yeah,
he gets thrown into the tour again this year, and he seemed like his attitude and his mind were just like hanging on, and for whatever reason. And
like so maybe he'll do the tour down under, and that's his year.
Yeah, like Caleb. I mean, like
Caleb Ewan. There's another transfer.
Right.
He went to
Lotto?
Which Lotto?
The Red Lotto.
The Red Lotto, because they lost Andre Greipel, who went to minor leagues, right?
He's
riding with
Fortunato Samsic.
Yeah, who's on there with him?
Well,
Warren Barguil.
Yeah, and that's the only ones you know.
That's it. Yeah, so they'll kind of fade into anonymity there. I think.
You think he'll look good in a white kit, though?
I mean, he was. How many times was he in the German national championship kit? He was in that
true,
often
but
enough.
Those are white shorts. Those are black shorts.
Oh yeah, it'll be an interesting look. But I think also on the transfer side, Caleb Ewan's taking Roger Kluge with him. He's kind of his last lead-out guy, so they're sticking together. Who else do we got on this?
Trenton to Direct Energy.
No,
I'm sorry,
Terpstra.
You wrote that on there. I knew that.
Yeah.
Trenton went last year to Mitchelton Scott.
Right. So Terpstra went to, again, that's an odd move. I mean, you think he would have been a standout at Quick Step. I wonder why he would go down to Direct Energy, unless they're applying for a World Tour license.
The Fever said he couldn't afford him.
Oh. And Direct Energy could?
Well, maybe it's the only guy that they have now. I don't know. Well, you got rid of Chavanel. He might have been taking a salary that was a little unbecoming. And wasn't he the guy we talked about that no one liked him? That he was kind of a dick.
Who?
Terpstra.
I've read that. Yeah, I've read that he's not a really pleasant fella in a race sense, like spitting on other riders.
That's right. We had that. We had that in the races. Izagiri brothers, I saw are moving to UAE from Bahrain. Bahrain's taking on a bunch of other people as well. Danny Pate announces his retirement from Raleigh. That's been kind of just lackluster since he came off of the World Tour anyway.
Yeah, he came from Sky, right? Sky, and then you Raleigh for a couple of years, and just I guess he was kind of road captain, but it didn't do a lot.
Yeah. So
it just kind of faded away there.
My story with him is when I first went out to Colorado, he would show up at the races and do the Cat 3s with his dad, drop his dad. I mean, he was a little kid, but obvious talent, and that's my story. I don't know.
I like that story though.
We raced with him too. Then when he was up with the Colorado Cyclist, who else we have? Jelly. Okay, talk about the teams that are quitting here.
Before quitting teams, the other big move was Katie Hall leaving UHC to Bully Dolman. So it's interesting to see her go there after her comments post California. So.
That's right. Maybe we'll post them in just down here. She talked about them being bullies over there specifically she was talking about that team.
Yeah.
So I think it's like Dan Martin though going over to UAE. They said they back up a truck of gold or money to him and do whatever.
It'd be cool to see her in that scene and getting the opportunity. So
that's the key. I think so what she goes there to bully. Now she gets to be with the bullies. You know, like you don't like a guy. A certain basketball player or whatever, and then he gets signed to your team. Oh, see,
right.
LeBron James is now with the Lakers, so
right,
yeah.
But still like him. Folding teams. It seems like it's been a tough year for those Conti level teams or pro Conti teams in the States and Canada with UHC calling off their sponsorship, and I think they fall under the same umbrella company as Rally.
Yeah, I didn't know if we had talked about that.
No, so I think. the powers that be decided that, well, why are we sponsoring two teams? Let's just do one, and who's the better of the two? Probably Rally. So let's keep them and kill off UHC.
Now, what's interesting there is I don't think until the last 2 years that was the case. I always had the impression that UHC was a notch above Rally.
Yeah.
And I think Rally's steadily gone up. And some of that was based on Evan Huffman winning, 2 stages of the Tour of California 2 years ago. And just kind of that progression where they
just got a lot better.
Yeah.
I mean, they got a lot better and they performed better in races. And UHC seemed to just be, well, they'll win the flat kind of crit type stages and they won't be around for GC or anything like that. And definitely Rally was getting more attention with better performances. Whether
Rob
it was
Britton, Colin Joyce,
because Rob Britton won Utah last year, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But he had some good rides in the Tour of California as well.
Right. Yeah. And I think even a couple of guys that retired from Rally had really great Tour of California stages. A couple of the guys won the climbing jersey or won a stage here and there. So on the bigger scene, I think Rally's done a better job of being the more standout teams.
Right. They've progressed steadily.
And then Jelly Belly, after almost 20 years of being a team sponsor, is calling it quits. So it's kind of a bummer to see them fade away. They didn't get into the Tour of California this year, right? I don't recall.
I don't believe so. I think they were kind of collateral damage of TOC upping their world tour status,
right.
As far as UCI level racing. So Action, some of the other teams didn't get in.
Yeah, so bummer to see them go. And then on the same front, Silber, which is kind of the Canadian equivalent of UHC and Jelly Belly. I guess it's just a smaller group that was the lead sponsor, and they've decided to call it as well. So kind of a bummer to see all those teams fade away. I don't know if somebody's going to step in and pick those up, or if they're just going to kind of fade away and leave close to 30 guys up for grabs on the market, or how it's going to proceed.
Right. And I saw online some people were kind of taking shots at, like Jelly Belly pulling out. But, yeah, I mean, like 20 years in the sport, they've definitely done a lot of good.
Right.
And, what do you do? Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure they had their reasons for doing it, but it's a bummer. But, yeah, you can't knock them for pulling their sponsorship.
Right.
It just seems like overall there's a big challenge on the cycling front. I've been reading a lot of the Quick Step stuff, and they're still struggling to find a title sponsor for next year. And Lefebvre is trying to, I think, use the Wolfpack name as kind of a good advertisement to lure a sponsor in.
Is that a good advertisement? I don't know.
I think they're trying to market that as much as they can. But if a team that's as dominant and is winning as much as Quickstep is can't land a sponsor, I mean, how is a Jelly Belly supposed to get replaced, or a UHC supposed to get replaced? It just seems like
Canadian Silver team.
Right, exactly. What's the maple syrup company up there that can step up? I don't know. Or a timber company. It just seems like
because that's all they've got going on.
I think so. Yeah. It just seems like there's a change in the model, and something needs to be kind of shaken out to change how they're approaching this. Instead of getting these short-term corporate sponsorships, they need to reevaluate what they're doing.
Yeah, probably. Someday I would like to sit down with a sports economist and someone who knows cycling in depth as well, and try to. I know some of the solutions that we've talked about with some of these things, it doesn't necessarily work with the way the sport is.
Right.
And, you had talked about, you want to start putting on races where you just have two guys race each other. I don't know.
What?
Remember we were talking about trying to come up with new ways to do things.
The Phil Mickelson, Tiger Woods equivalency?
Yes.
I think that'd be a good model.
Right.
It'd have to be like a uphill TT or something, but.
It would, yeah.
I think they tried it with Guyman and Cancellara, and I don't think it was as big of a.
Well, you have to do superstar. You have to do people that are worth watching, and similar, right?
That's true. Well, not really. Maybe you want to see how a climber.
That's like Bubba Watson and Zach Johnson, what you just talked about there, right?
Yeah. You just got to find common ground. I don't know. But yeah, it just seems like something needs to be tweaked. What it is, I don't know. All right. We're not in a position to solve that.
No, we're not. Do you have any winners from the World Tour?
I got to go with, since I get to go first, Sepp Kuss. I mean, he just destroyed Utah and kind of staked his flag there as the climbing superstar for America.
Okay. That's that. I'm gonna pick Lotto NL Jumbo.
Oh, come on!
For the young guys coming out to California, and doing what they did. Utah. Then saying the right state.
It's close.
Yeah, no, but I thought it was very impressive that they came out. A bunch of young guys. They had, like I said, one old rider, and then everyone was really young, and they did a good job. So
what'd the old rider do? Who was the old rider?
I looked him up once. I didn't recognize him.
Was it Lars Bohm?
No, I don't think he was over here. It could have been a name similar to that. Maybe we'll look it up and post it. No, we won't.
Yeah.
How about a loser?
Man, how about just all the teams that are getting dropped and losing sponsors? That's terrible.
Right. Yeah, that's a horrible thing. You're talking about domestically, continental, or world tour, or just in general?
Just in general.
Yeah, it sucks.
It just seems like maybe it happens every few years. Who knows?
Imagine if we were watching, like football season is going to start.
Right.
What if every year we were concerned about, the Raiders fans used to do this, I guess, with their team coming and going. True. But if your team is going to be the Niners or the Rams,
right. Yeah, it just seems like there's no stability.
No, the only thing you have to worry about as a football fan now is your cheerleading squad have a male dancer or not a male dancer? That's about as wacky as it gets.
Right.
All right. So mine is EF Education First. I know you can't. I'm thinking you have a team that's based there in Colorado, and I don't think that race specifically was set up for them. But even Utah, you come back from the tour, you were second in the tour last year. You've got to be winning one of these races,
right?
And don't. And you put up a good fight, and they did, but I couldn't imagine a race that the Wolfpack were like with a big team going in on a local level, type of thing. It's if you can anywhere adjust a weird similarity and them not winning.
Right.
I mean, it's just
and just getting
not that these two teams are comparable, but
right. But if you compare it by scale, yeah, they should have been the Wolfpack equivalent in Colorado and Utah, and they just got stomped.
Right.
I mean, yeah, they put 3 guys in the top 6, but so.
What about Trek Segafredo? I mean, they come out. They're not really Tom Squeens. Maybe their best rider out in Colorado at 9th.
Yeah, I don't think they really brought a team to compete though. It just seems like they're we're here.
I guess let's take a vacation.
Right.
All right, so that's kind of my loser. Let's finish off some of this domestic stuff. USA Crit Series. You want to break down some of the things that you saw there? I know we didn't really watch any of them, but we could just go through some of the results. I don't know if I saw. We're still seeing some of the same guys: Connor Mullery, Kevin Gherkins out in Littleton, Oliver Flout for the women, Samantha Schneider, Josie Talbot, Carolyn Bauer. Got a smattering of. So Connor Mullery is from Broomfield, which is right next to Littleton there. So he actually got to go race at home. The other 2 people were not from local riders there. I did Littleton. I'm sure it's probably the same setup. It just started when I was still racing out there in the late 90s.
Yeah.
Pretty cool old downtown area. So, and I know they've changed that up there, but fun stuff.
Do you know if they were doing all these as kind of Twilight-esque crits or some of them daytime crits?
I think most of them are all Twilight. I mean, I haven't seen one that's not yet.
Okay.
Yeah. Which is, I think, a good concept, too.
It is. Yeah. Brings the fans out.
Right. What about the Benchmark Twilight in Westchester? This is a race? That's what you said?
I don't know.
All right. Corey Davis first, Ton Givens, Frank Treviso, Samantha Snyder again, Beck Wiesak, and Christina Clonan, all top 3s there. So we got the overall. Dave Gutenplan still leading.
He's got a pretty big lead. And
he does.
Looking at how the points get distributed, I don't know if it's possible for the Cliff Bar guys to kind of catch him.
I don't know. Connor is in second, and yeah, that looks like the total points. He's like 300 points off. I don't know what you get for all of this, but
right.
Yeah, Gutenplan, he's been just racking it up. He must sponsor his own team. You think?
I would think that's
his coaching plan.
Yeah.
And then Zach Allison, Team Cliff Bar as well in second place. So Cliff Bar still doing well there. Samantha Schneider of IS Corp Pro Cycling, taking away the women's. Tina Pick, Colavita, Christina Goki, Colavita, and then Carolyn Bauer of IS Corp. So IS Corp 1 and 4th, and Colavita 2nd and 3rd. And that actually looks tighter. You got 1990 for the top and down to fourth, 17:23. So looks like they still have a chance.
Right, and I think they've got 1 or 2 events left, so it looks like that series will be wrapping up, and it'll be interesting to kind of see how that plays out, whether it's something that was successful and continues on next year, and they can kind of build some momentum off that and keep it going, because it definitely will draw some attention to the crit scene, which is cool.
Yeah, and I think the money obviously helps some of that. I feel like I really enjoyed watching, us when we were all together streaming the San Rafael.
Right.
And then sometimes it's hard on a Saturday night to find time to watch something, but I feel like I enjoyed it, and maybe I need to make a little better effort next time.
That's one of the nice things about some of the East Coast races. They take place a little earlier for us.
Well, I'm helping the wife out at that time. All right, so locally we had Dunnigan Road Race, which was the Elite District Road Race Championships.
Correct.
And how'd that play out? Did you go join in on that?
I did not. I'm really I've been a bad bike racer lately. I think the last time I really did a race was, I don't know, Nevada City. When was that? June?
Sheesh.
Yeah, it's been a while.
That was the last one?
I think so. I don't know.
I'm trying to remember my last one.
I think it was Nevada City.
Was it?
Probably. So district championships came and went. We didn't participate, but Chris Coble from Olympic Club won. Again, a lot of this I'm inferring from kind of third-hand information or looking at photos. It looks like a group of 3 got away with Coble, Cooper Shanks from Dolce Vita, and Jeffrey Bichek from Davis Bike Club. The top 3 was Coble, Cooper, and Jeff Bichek. So good for them. Talked to Brian Zimney a little bit. It sounds like there were a few early attacks. Little groups got away. I guess 2 guys got away early, took a wrong turn. They ended up getting back on the group at some point, but obviously their lead was quickly eliminated. I guess you know the course relatively well.
Yeah, I mean, if you've done it, I'm just confused about taking a wrong turn if you've ever done that race.
So if you're coming back, you start the race, you're making your way back toward Highway 505, and you would make the right-hander like you were finishing Bariani. They just kept going straight.
Okay.
And they had a motor ref with them. Yeah. I don't know if the motor ref told them, hey, turn around. But either way, also talking to Zimney.
They didn't get lost on that long stretch coming back, right?
I don't think so. No. Take an exit too early or an exit too late. But it sounds like Coble just kind of did like a roll off the front attack, nothing too hard, and folks gave him a gap, and only a couple of guys were able to jump across to him. So that's how it goes.
So he's the district champion.
He is.
Elite.
So
he's also, is he in the Masters in the 35s?
I don't know if he won that, but yeah, he's a Masters aged racer.
I mean, he won the 35 Masters last year. We were at that race, right? Didn't he win that one?
He won the crit.
Yeah, the crit.
Yeah.
So he is, he can, wear different jerseys.
He can.
For different races. Good
Lucky
for him.
Guy.
I talked to Josh Carling last week. He came up from the Wednesday ride and talking a little bit about this race, and they missed the break, and then they were doing some work, and I don't know. He's coming back from, I hope I'm not spilling the beans on stuff, but he's had some health issues related to just a wreck a few years ago. So he's still with his headaches and stuff. So
is it the one up in Gastown where he had a bad crash?
Yeah. So I couldn't imagine, having to go through that where you're getting migraines and, you think the weather's bad, the smoky stuff, and then you've got to mix in the fact that you're in a fog yourself. So
yeah.
Anyway, it sounds like he was like finally doing some new things that were coming good, and so
that's good.
We'll see what happens with that.
I mean, even with that, he's definitely been racing well.
Right.
So.
Right. And he and I were talking about, he trains more than I do, but he's still not training enough for, a road race like that just hampers you. I mean, he's great on crits.
Right.
Still got that. So a long road race like that's a little bit more difficult. But
yeah, I think the big challenge leading into that race was kind of will it, won't it actually happen because of air quality.
Right.
And I think it ended up clearing up enough where the promoter was comfortable putting the race on. And for most of the photos, it looked like it was relatively blue skies, which is good to see.
Yeah.
Because I've raced out there a few years ago, and it was just terribly smoky and 100 degrees, and it was miserable.
Did you have any other complaints about the race?
I have a lot, but
say it.
35 plus field just was absent. I think there were 4 racers in there, which is kind of a bummer because that's been one of the strongest fields in that at that race over the past few years. So it's down to 4 racers, which is insane. I'm guessing a lot of the guys that were in that field jumped into the P12 race.
Right.
Whether to race with more people or to maybe take a shot at the district championship. I don't know. We'll see. The other thing that was interesting is looking at a lot of the photos. You've got a lot of guys that are they've fallen off their own group and they're just kind of rolling into the finish. And, whether it's on the officials to kind of pull them out of the way or it's on them as racers to kind of get out of the way, you'll see a handful of pictures where field sprints are coming in and having to kind of dodge around these guys and fly out over the center line and get relegated for going over the center line. It's just take it upon yourself to know that, okay, I'm not in contention. I can look back and see 100 guys coming at me. I'm going to move out of the way and let them finish because my race is over. So it definitely adds an unnecessary element of danger and risk to a finish there.
Well, and part of that finish is it's not a climb, but it's an uphill.
Right.
So you don't just come into the finish and you're rolling in and you're going to easily stay ahead of whatever group. I mean, those groups coming up sprinting on you, and you've been dropped, you're getting closed down quick.
Right.
And it's not a good combo.
No, definitely not. I think there was one in particular. It must have been the field finish for the P12 riders, and they had to just basically fan out over the road to avoid hitting another rider. And then in the women's field, Melanie Wong won the championship. Hannah got second, and Ellie got third. So good to see those three do well at districts and then jump right over and race in Colorado.
Yeah, which they both did. All three of them did there. So then Sassoon was the next day. Ariel takes the win there. And you said you got to see a live feed of that?
Yeah, Sean Bagley had a Facebook live feed going. I think it was the last 3 or 4 laps, and it looked like Ariel was kind of just holding off the field on a flyer. And the short enough laps where 4 laps to go is something you might be able to hold. But it's cool to see Ariel hold maybe a 20-yard gap and keep the field off. So good for him to get the win.
Yeah,
in the P12, and he's another Masters racer.
Right. Any winners and losers of NorCal?
Of NorCal? Good to see a Masters racer get the Elite District Championship. So it's, I guess,
you're a Chris Coble fan anyway.
He races well. He gets results.
I understand. How about loser?
Probably, I wouldn't call them a loser, but
no, that's not.
The turnout for Velo promo races lately has been pretty terrible. A lot of races getting canceled, 35 plus fields just disappearing. I would say, where's everybody going that used to race, but we're not racing either.
Right.
I guess we're all at our local race ride instead, or doing stuff at home. So just turnout just continues to kind of dwindle. So.
And weren't they doing like a GoFundMe for a few races too as well?
I thought they did one at the start of the year just to kind of keep the ship rolling, and then they're doing one specifically for the Giro because there is some unexpected permitting costs to try and get the roads cleared out. So they've got one set up for that right now.
I got an inquiry this week. Hey, where's your podcast? We skipped a week or so in there, and then a request to do some sort of breakdown or interviews about the lack of participation. And so maybe some input from some people who you think we should talk to about that, who might have some good ideas about where things are going and, some of those questions that need to be answered, or even your input about where are the riders going?
Right.
I don't know. Why are we not? Maybe it's a supply and demand thing. We have too much supply of races, so the demand gets kind of petered. I don't know. If you only have 10 races to do in the year, you're going to try to hit all 10 races.
Right.
But if you have 30, you keep going,
I'll do it next week. Next week, I'll do it the week after.
Right.
I mean, from January until August.
These are like first world problems.
It really is. But from January to August, we really have, I can't think of a weekend where you don't have at least one race. It's just, there's so many that it's really easy to say, well, I don't want to race Snelling this week because I got to drive all the way down there. I'll just do whatever race it is the following week, and this week I'll just do my local race ride.
Snelling gets
Snelling does get good turnout.
I don't understand that.
I think it's early enough where everybody's still kind of
hope.
Yeah, there's hope and there's motivation to get out and race. It's still early in the season. People haven't burnt out.
I mean,
yet.
Not that I don't enjoy that race. I'm just it's way out in the middle of nowhere.
it's definitely got its mark as a classic. But yeah, I can see it just being a quantity issue. We're not doing a good job bringing new people into the sport. So as guys kind of fade away from it, you don't really have any backfill going on. So you're just going to have numbers dwindle. And if you've got dwindling participation numbers and increasing races, well, you can see which direction the numbers are going to go.
Right.
I know we have a lot of people, they always throw out if you follow the NCNCA Facebook thing, they'll throw out, well, we've got this many registered racers. It's like, well, there's a difference between a registered racer and an actively participating racer. And yeah, we have a huge number of people carrying licenses, but how many of them are actually racing more than 5 times a year? Probably not very many. And so I think it comes down to try and figure out what's drawing people away. Whether it's an increase in gravel events, that could be it. One of the things I looked at doing in October with Curt was one of the grasshoppers up on the Lost Coast, and it's already sold out. It's like, geez. When was the last time you saw something in NorCal on the roadside sell out?
Yeah, when was the last time you worried about that field limit problem?
Right. That's why I thought, we'll just do this grasshopper, no big deal. And no, it's sold out. And if you look at a lot of the gravel kind of, I wouldn't call them casual because they're incredibly challenging, but whether it's Grinduro or Lost and Found, the Tour de Placer Roubaix, those things sell out immediately. So it's what's the appeal there? What's drawing people away from road to that? And obviously you can't replicate that because you got to have your own thing. I've seen ideas thrown about to increase gravel segments in road races, and it's like, I don't know too many people that are going to be excited about that, and it's going to draw you into that event. So I don't think you can kind of modify the existing races. I think you've got to step back and do some deeper thinking. Like if they were to add a gravel segment to Modesto, would that encourage you to race more than not? I'd say no.
No, because maybe those dirt races are not so much races as they are rides and getting through them. And there's only a few people that are worried about it. And then you get an issue with Dirty Kansas where all the road riders show up, and now everyone's pissed off, and there's controversy, and so it's not fun like it used to be. And so,
how dare you use race tactics in a race? What's wrong with you?
Exactly.
But yeah, I think
good thing Curt's not here. He'd defend.
It's a challenging thing that it's not something that's going to be resolved, I think, on a small level. It's going to take the community kind of effort to pull together and get people back out to races. And some of it's going to come down on promoters just having to reduce some of their events. I personally think it's a volume of races issue. There's just too many, and it's easy for guys to put them off, and it's easier to travel to your local crit that's going to happen every couple of weeks versus traveling in a couple hours to a more challenging road race. And
because every weekend away from the family is a bit much.
It really is. Yeah. And I think if there were fewer opportunities to race, you'd make those a priority and you're more likely to get out there. Because I think there's a lot of really cool races that I've done that are basically just falling off the calendar now. And it's unfortunate. Yeah, they're hard races, but that's kind of the way it goes.
Right.
So,
well, I've got some winners and losers for NorCal. Winners were all the females that we mentioned that went out and were able to do Colorado.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool for Melanie, Hannah, Ellie, and you said there was another one that we were
Lisa Cordova.
Yeah. All getting a chance to race with the bigger team. So it's pretty cool.
And not just race with bigger teams, but I mean, they were in the mix.
Well, Ellie was, she finished top 5 on the young rider category. Right. And every day she was like 7th or 8th, and then she moved up and up. So, and she was like 3 minutes off of that. So pretty good for her. Losers, I would say air quality in Northern California lately. It's been a problem. We needed a wind, but then the wind is not good for the fire. So,
can't win.
It was a double-edged sword. Plus it was hot.
Right.
And it was just a pain. I also mentioned here, maybe I'll bring it up later. We'll talk about, not in this podcast, but another one. Davis. I yelled at, I had a little argument with John Fairbanks. And the point I'd bring it up is that he handled it like an adult, which we are supposed to be, to the point where we were good about it afterwards. He looked at me, I'm yelling at him about something that I thought he did incorrectly, and he just kind of looked at me and kind of ignored me. And it came up later to talk to me about it. and it diffused the situation instead of like yelling back and forth. So kudos to, I never called that out, and I forgot to say something because it was good for him. I really appreciate it. I actually thought he was someone else who would have deserved to be yelled at a little bit more.
So just a level-headed guy. It's good to have those in the field.
I still say what he did in the race was not appropriate, but knowing who it is, I think it was all good. So we're good. We're good. Good job, John. All right. We'll do it. Speaking of air quality, throw on Nate's coaching tip here, or maybe not. We'll throw it in somewhere in this thing, but we talked about that earlier. Yeah. Here's good. And how about things that make you go, Chris, you have any? I just
had my little rant about racer turnout. That's still going to be an ongoing issue, but another thing that I wish Curt was here so he could really tell us this story. I'm just going to maybe leave it as a teaser. So Curt's he lives up in Nevada City and has been adventuring off in the gravel roads lately, and he's got an interesting story where he was running out of daylight, running high on mechanicals, and kind of got his bike in good running order.
No cell reception.
No cell reception. Of course,
out in the middle of weed air territory.
Right. So he's making a quick run back to his car so he can get home before Claire thinks he's dead, and ends up having to chase a bear, it sounds like. So we'll leave it at that and let Curt tell more about that on his next trip.
Yeah, he had to make the decision of, do I chase the bear or try to run away from the bear? And I think what the terrain was, he had to just go down.
Yeah, because I think running away from the bear would have required him to go uphill.
And getting dead.
Right. So I assume he's got other exciting tales that he can tell us about on his next
we'll see if he ever comes back in. Mine is going to be Taco Vanderhorn. A delicious win he got in a breakaway at the Bink Break. He's a 24-year-old Dutchman with the best name in cycling, Taco. I mean, I had to get better at that. Zimni messaged me that morning and said, "Hey, Taco Wednesday. Maybe you have a name in cycling that's better than that." I don't know of one, but
I mean, that's a winner. Is that his real name, like his given name, or is that just kind of like his?
It says Taco Vanderhorn, and the commentary on it did not mention his name, so I'm like, okay, it's not like Superman, right? I mean, that's a nickname.
I just don't know if it's shorthand for something Dutch. I don't know.
Taco.
I don't know.
I don't know, but that's all I have. So what's up ahead? We've got Winters and Vacaville. They are happening.
No, Vacaville's not.
Vacaville's not happening, but right. Winters. Oh, that's why it's in red. Yeah. Winters is happening. At least I paid him money already, so I'm showing up.
I paid them money as well, so I plan to be there.
Right. Then we have the Masters Juniors District Championships, state champs as I like to call them, even though it's north and south. Volta coming up. We have USA Crit Series Gateway Cup in September 2. The series finale in Atlantic City on the 15th. You have anything else that's coming up? Wow, that's a lot.
I'm running through my head of the next local races that are coming up and that's left on the season worth jumping into. Winters, obviously. I've never done that race before. I've always heard good things. So excited to do it this year. I assume the Oakland Grand Prix is still on. That's a fun course. The Giro, I think, is going to be a go. It sounds like they're doing the permitting for that. It's a fun course. It's just really hard to get to on a holiday.
Yes.
It's really difficult to get into and race in downtown San Francisco.
And it's always the day after the Masters stuff. So for me, I'm just kind of like, I've already been over here.
Yeah.
And then maybe I'll make an adventure.
And then Henleyville's coming up. That's kind of the season ender, and it's a fun little road race.
Henleyville, I was just thinking about that earlier when you're saying, some of these Masters on Dunnigan joined in with the P12. I remember doing that a few years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to find the field to sign up to that has the most riders because nothing's worth. And so we did the P12 field, Curt and I, and hey, both on the podium, by the way.
Nice.
But the problem you have there is like 25 riders. They actually threw the Masters kind of in with us too, because there's like 2 of them.
Yeah.
And the problem you have is, 3 or 4 guys start to jump and go up the road. And then if you follow, next thing you know, I'm just happened to me. I'm like, wait, we're not the chase. We're getting dropped.
Right.
That's really what happens. So it was tough. It makes it a tough race in those things.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know what that has to do with anything. Curt's not here to talk about what he's mad at. And I think that's pretty much all we have for today.
Yeah. I guess you're mad at Curt for not showing
I'm mad at Curt. God forbid. I hope everything's okay with him. He didn't talk to us about that. But
like I said, I think he's tidying up his youth hostel. So
All right, okay.
He's got to keep things neat up there.
We'll forgive him. We'll continue out this. So we're going to be out at Winters. Maybe we'll take the mic out there. It's always tough trying to interview people after a race, but
it is. I think we always have the best of intentions, and then we do a race, and it's like, I don't want to talk to anybody.
Right.
I'm tired.
Right. Exactly.
And I raced poorly, so I don't want to talk about you winning.
Right. Maybe we'll try to get out to that, the end of the season banquet thing that they have.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking about that the other day. Might be a good time to try to recap with some of these teams and people that actually get awards.
Right.
Show up there and see what we can do.
Where is that? That's usually Bay Area?
Yeah. I don't know. The podcast will pay for it, though, Chris.
Oh, good. Yeah. Excellent.
All right. Well, anyway, thanks for joining us. This was episode 84. Subscribe to the show. Check us out on YouTube, our iTunes, and share the show. Make some comments. Join us on our Facebook page, Between Two, the number 2 wheels. And like I said, join us. Write some comments. See what we have. Maybe we'll interview you someday. Anything else you want to say before we close out here?
I think if people comment and participate, we'll try and take on a greater effort to do this more frequently than semi-weekly. So it's a give and take. So we need some feedback.
Gotcha. So if they don't really give a shit, then they're just not going to comment.
Yeah, that's true. Whatever.
So you give them incentive. Okay. So your inaction is actually action. All right. Well, no, definitely. So give us. We'll mention some mailbag if you guys happen to make some comments. Other than that, Chris, I appreciate you joining in. We'll see you out at the race. Right?
Yeah. I'll see you on the bike on Wednesday, perhaps.
Oh yeah. Well, last thing. Somehow we've got tagged into taking care of the Wednesday night ride out in the Folsom Bikes. So we're keeping track of that. Maybe next time we'll talk about the debacle that was last week.
We're going to have a whole show about group ride etiquette.
Right. Group ride etiquette. It's a big controversy. Maybe that's why Curt's not here, because he's on the other side of that.
I think he's still feeling the burn there.
Yeah. Anyway, so group rides, we got everything going. Thanks for joining us. And until next time, Chris Flower.
See you.
Curt Mills.
Bye.
And Tyler Janke.